Welcome back to Dieu Han RV. We send you strength, clarity, and peace, because what you're about to witness isn't just a moment in a story. It's a risk, a line crossed, and a soul tested. Sometimes the greatest courage isn't loud, it's quiet. It's one man choosing to enter the lion's den, not to save himself, but to uncover the truth. For someone else, Dan walks alone into a place where secrets sleep behind locked doors and danger hides in plain sight. He's not a fighter, he's not trained, but he carries something stronger than fear, a promise to find Yuen, to face whatever darkness guards her. Would you walk into a trap, knowing it might be your last step, just to keep your word? This isn't bravery, it's devotion. Before we begin, tap like, hit subscribe, and share this story. It's more than a search, it's a descent into the unknown, where one wrong move could mean no way out, but then chose to walk in. Not because he had answers, but because someone had to. If you've ever risked everything for someone who couldn't ask, this story is for you. The night was thick with silence, but Dan's heartbeat was louder than any noise. Each step he took was a step into the unknown, a place where truth might live, or danger might wait. He didn't come with a plan, just a name and a reason, and he didn't know what he'd find. But one thing was clear: whatever he uncovered here might cost him everything. He crouched by the wall, listening through metal bars as voices echoed inside. Names, threats, money. This wasn't just about a missing girl anymore. It was a web, and Yuen was caught at the center. Then knew he was out of place, but he couldn't turn back. The truth was close now, close enough to touch, and just far enough to destroy him if he reached for it too soon. He thought about Dieu Han, about the night she almost died, about the look in her eyes when she said, "I can't lose her too." That's why he was here, not for glory, not for answers, but because some debts aren't owed in words, they're paid in courage. Then inhaled, then moved closer to the window. Sometimes truth doesn't wait, it dares you to come get it. Not every truth comes quietly. Sometimes it drags you into the light, ready or not. Then froze as the door creaked open. There she was, Mrs. Chin Chin, eyes sharp as glass, her voice slicing through the dark. "Who are you sneaking around my house for, trying to steal something, boy?" He opened his mouth, but fear and shame fought for space in his throat. This wasn't how he imagined tonight. But truth never comes without risk, and now he was standing right in the middle of it. Mrs. Chin didn't need to shout. Her suspicion was loud enough. Looking through windows in the middle of the night. "You think this is a joke?" Then raised his hand slowly. "I swear, I'm not here to steal anything." He tried to keep his voice calm, but his heart pounded like it wanted to run first. One wrong word, and things could spiral. Wasn't just chasing answers anymore. Now he was chasing time, to prove he meant no harm. He looked her in the eye. "I'm looking for someone, her name is Yuen." The name shifted something in her stare. Chin blinked, hesitated, then turned away like the night air had cut through her chest. There was something there, not guilt, but memory, fear, and a wall she wasn't ready to open, then didn't press. But in that pause, he knew he was getting close, maybe too close. Mrs. Chin stayed seated, but her posture stiffened, and her eyes narrowed sharply. The name Yen triggered something deep inside her, an unease she couldn't quite hide. Her hands stopped moving, frozen above the table, as if paralyzed by the weight of what she had just heard. She didn't shout, but her voice dropped low and firm. She told Dan he must be mistaken. And yet, a faint tremble betrayed her rising fear. Mrs. Chin narrowed her eyes and spoke slowly, as if weighing every word. "Yen is my daughter," she said. Her voice no longer trembled, it was laced with suspicion now. She leaned slightly forward, scanning Dan's face as though searching for a hidden motive. "Why are you really here?" she asked, tone sharp like a blade. Then, without waiting for an answer, she added, "Stay right there. I'm calling my husband." Dan didn't move. His heart pounded in his chest, but he kept his eyes steady. He hadn't expected this reaction. All he wanted was to help find Yen, but now it felt like he had walked into a trap. The air thickened with tension. He nodded slightly, signaling that he'd stay put. But deep down, he knew something was off. Something about Mrs. Chin's fear wasn't just about a missing girl. Merchant stepped out, his face dark with rage, jaw clenched like a man ready for battle. But there was something else beneath that anger, a flicker of fear. Then saw it. A man doesn't get that mad unless he's trying to hide something. Merchant's voice thundered through the room, asking what this stranger was doing in his house. But Then didn't flinch. He knew this anger wasn't about him, it was about what might be uncovered. Merchant lunged at Then without warning, rage erupting like a storm long held back. In that split second, Than's instincts kicked in. He dodged, heart racing, and sure if it was fury or fear that gave him speed. Mrs. Chin screamed something behind them, but it all blurred into chaos. Then didn't fight back. He knew this wasn't the time for confrontation. Survival was the only choice, and he ran, breath sharp and legs trembling. Then dashed down the dark alley like a sprinter at the sound of the gun. Each step pounded the pavement with fear and urgency, his breath ragged, heart slamming against his ribs. The night swallowed his figure, but his mind burned with questions. What were they hiding? Why did they react that way? And most of all, was Yan in danger? He didn't stop to look back. Survival wasn't just instinct now. It was the only way to find the truth. Just as Then turned the corner, a motorbike slowed down near the intersection. Without thinking, he stepped into the light, raising his hand. The driver, startled, almost kept going, but something in Than's eyes made him stop. Breathless, Then asked for a ride, voice trembling. The driver hesitated only a second before nodding. Danger was behind them, and Then couldn't afford to waste even a heartbeat. Then jumped onto the back seat, barely catching his balance. The motorbike roared to life and sped into the night, its taillight quickly fading into the distance. Wind whipped against his face as he clung tightly, trying to calm his racing mind. That escape had been too close. Whatever Mr. Chin and his wife were hiding, it wasn't something small. And he was now even more determined to find Yan. As the motorbike slowed down at a quiet roadside, the driver turned and looked at Then sharply. Without any warmth, he demanded a large sum for the ride. Than's eyes widened. He hadn't expected kindness to come with such a price. He explained he didn't have that much money, but the man's face darkened. What had felt like salvation now felt like a new kind of trap. Their voices rose in the quiet night. Then, exhausted and still trembling from the chase, pleaded for understanding, but the man snapped, accusing him of taking advantage. Every word felt heavier than the last. At that moment, Then realized, kindness, when forced, could turn cruel. He had escaped one danger, only to land in another born from desperation. He froze. That face, that voice, he'd seen him before. The man on the motorbike was the one who had attacked Dieu Han. All the blood drained from Than's face as the truth hit him. He wasn't just arguing with a stranger, he was staring straight into the eyes of the danger they'd been running from. There was no room for doubt anymore. The man smirked, realizing Then recognized him, and in that smirk was a warning. He hadn't finished what he started. The man stopped pretending. With a sudden shift in posture, he lunged forward without a word, eyes burning with fury. Then instinctively took a step back, sensing danger before it even reached him. He didn't wait to ask questions. He turned and bolted out of the narrow yard, heart pounding, breath catching, knowing this wasn't just about a disagreement. Then sprinted down the street, each step driven by pure fear. Behind him, footsteps pounded the pavement, growing closer. He could feel the tension snapping at his back, the threat breathing down his neck. He turned into a small alley, hoping to lose his pursuer, but the man's voice echoed, cruel and relentless. There was no turning back now. Then crouched inside a hollow concrete block, trying to slow his breath. He wasn't injured, but his body was drenched in sweat, heart pounding from the chase. Only Yan was missing now. Dieu Han was safe, for the moment, but that didn't make the fear any less. The men chasing him had ties to something darker, and Then knew time was slipping away. He clenched his fists in silence, vowing to keep going until Yan was found. He looked out through the crack in the concrete, watching the man's shadow pass just meters away, then didn't dare move. Every sound outside felt like a scream inside his chest. He wasn't hiding for himself. He was hiding for Yen, for Dieu Han, and for the child who called Dieu Han mom. In that dark space, he realized something. This wasn't just fear. This was purpose. He ran back to the parked motorbike and, with one swift push, sent it crashing into the roadside gutter. The metallic sound echoed into the night, buying him precious seconds. Thanh didn't look back. His heart knew that every moment counted now. He wasn't just escaping danger, he was making sure it would take longer for it to catch up. Inside the car, Thanh finally let out a long breath he'd been holding since the chase. As the city lights flickered by, his mind replayed everything from the lies, the violence, to the terrifying realization that someone was still after Yen. He clenched the steering wheel tighter. Tomorrow had to be different. Tomorrow, they would take back control and he would stand beside Dieu Han to find the truth. Yen is still missing. Time is running out. Thanh has returned safely, but the danger is far from over. What will tomorrow bring? Will they find her before it's too late? If you've made it this far, please subscribe, like, and share this video. Your support means more than words can say.